All right, Chris Rett, Certified Financial Planner. Thanks for taking time to be here on America's Wealth Management Show with me again.
Thanks for having me, Dean.
So we're going to talk about estate planning today, and we're going to talk about reviewing your estate plan. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions when it comes to an estate plan, Chris, because everybody has one. Whether you've done it or not, you have one. It's either the plan that you put together or it's the plan that the state puts together for you.
That's a great way of putting that. Yeah. So it's exactly right. It's either you sit down and you tell how you want things played out, or to your point, the state will decide for you.
Look, here's the thing. We all know that we're not immortal, right? We're all going to pass at some point in time. And so at a very base level, the estate plan is designed to say, here's what I want to happen with the things that I have when I'm gone, right? Now that's, and some people will think, well, just do a will, right?
Yeah.
Why is a will not enough in most cases, Chris?
Yeah. So I think the big misconception with a will is that they can be contested. So you can spend time or, put something together, put thought to paper and say, hey, this is how I want it divvied out. And it can still go through probate. It will go through probate.
Yeah. Right. I mean, every will goes through probate, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's a trust-based will or whether a will-based trust or whether it's a will. Wills all go through probate. And essentially what the probate court is there to do is to read the last will and testament of the individual and then follow those wishes, right? But it's expensive, and guess what? It's also public.
That's exactly right.
So if you want your entire estate to be public and anybody can know everything that you have, then just do a will.
That's exactly right. Or if you want it contested,
and if it goes through probate, it's going to take months.
Yeah.
And it's expensive.
That's exactly right. So the opposite to that, Dean, would be saying, hey, if you want it kept private, like you said, or if you want it detailed exactly how you want it, then do an estate plan.
Look, here's the thing. We've got something here that I think a lot of people really should take a look at. And this is just, some education here. So we've created this estate planning guide, and I'd love to have you get out to deanbarber.com or modwm.com and get a copy of that estate planning guide. It's modwm.com. And there's great information here. It's a 13-page guide. There's all kinds of questions, things that you need to be considering, right? So we're talking today about reviewing your estate plan. But to review your estate plan, we're going to have to assume that someone has actually done an estate plan.
Yeah. And I think this would be a cue to those listeners that if you haven't done an estate plan, it's probably a good time to start an estate plan or have one done. But to your point, yes, when it comes to the components of reviewing estate plan, there's a couple items that we want to go through today.
Yeah, and also I would encourage people to go out, check out the show, either find it on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app. It's an interview that I did with Mike Bennett of Encore Estate Plans, and it's called 5 Important Estate Planning Items to Address. You can find that on the America's Wealth Management Show channel of your favorite podcast app or of YouTube. So let's talk about the first part of what I consider it to be the most important part of the estate plan. And it's the part of the estate plan that tells somebody else what to do in the event that you become incapable of making decisions, right? Maybe it's physically or mentally or whatever it is. You can't make decisions anymore. To me, that's a really key component to the estate plan because somebody else has to carry out your wishes. Somebody else has to take care of the things that you have, right? Pay your bills, make sure that your investments are properly allocated, make sure that your tax return gets filed. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Who is that person in the event that you and your significant other are incapable of making decisions and doing those things?
That's exactly right. And I want to take that a step further, is that as financial advisors, we tend to focus on the financial aspect, but there's a medical aspect to this as well. Is what do you, what type of last rites or survivor rights do you want as you're going through medical treatment? Is it something that you want to have resuscitation done, or you're saying, hey, I don't want any last measures taken. I want to be going peacefully or something of that nature. So there's a medical component to say, hey, what are your wishes when you can't make decisions for yourself? But also, I think, Dean, it's really, really important as we go down that durable power of attorney to who you're selecting to make those decisions. I recently met with a couple that we were reviewing their estate plan, and it was something they hadn't touched in a while. and they hadn't talked to this person in 10 years. You know?
And that person was going to be financial power of attorney or healthcare
and medical. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Boy, yeah.
So it was a family friend. It was
I don't care.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Is there money in there for me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Who? Yeah. Exactly. And so it is one of those things that we have a tendency, everybody has a tendency, but more specifically with the estate plan, is to kind of set it and forget it. And this is something that you at least want to touch every couple of years.
Every couple of years is good. So the three things that we're talking about, you kind of alluded to them. You get the durable power of attorney for finances. Okay, who is that person? Or maybe it can be, it could even be a corporate entity. Healthcare powers of attorney and healthcare directives, right? And I think the healthcare powers of attorney and the healthcare directives, that's something that I think you want somebody that's close to you, carrying out those wishes.
Sure.
But that's also something that you should be having a conversation with whoever is the, healthcare power of attorney and the healthcare director, whoever's in that document. You need to have conversations with that person while you're lucid and while you can have a good conversation so that they make sure that they understand what your wishes are.
That's exactly right. And so my wife is a nurse here at KU, so University of Kansas, and it is so sad when, somebody gets thrown into that role and they're not quite prepared and they don't know what to do and they're reading through the estate plan, what are mom and dad's wishes or what are brother and sisters. To your point is that getting it down on an estate plan is a great start, but you really ought to be having these conversations with loved ones as you're picking them to say, hey, here's what I want done. So we always hope that day never comes, but if it does, you want to be prepared, and you want the person making those decisions to be prepared. You don't want them making decisions on your health and under duress.
No. Well, or you don't want them making emotional decisions.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Okay, so let's run through 7 challenges of estate planning, and then we'll dive in deep to each one of these. You got attorneys, probate, estate taxes, long-term care as part of your estate plan, joint ownership, beneficiaries, and the final one is becoming incapacitated. So those are what we're going to call the 7 challenges of estate planning. So let's think about attorneys just for a minute, right? So do you need an attorney? You can go online and you can do a trust online. You can do a will online. Is that what a person should really do?
I always like the personal aspect, Dean, and myself. I like to sit down with a person. So I always think, can you do that? It depends really on the state and if it's something that the state is going to allow, but you really ought to talk to somebody.
I agree. Now, look, you're going to have all kinds of different opinions out there. Finding the right attorney, getting a fair price, and maintaining some control, right? So when you think about working with an attorney, you want somebody that's going to listen to you. You want somebody that's going to act in a way that it's fair. And you can get referrals, right? You can say, okay, word of mouth. I think when we look at things from an estate planning perspective, Chris, I believe that the estate planning part of your overall financial life is just a part of the overall financial plan. Okay, so
completely
you're
agree.
You're a certified financial planner. That doesn't mean that you're an investment guy. It doesn't mean that you're a CPA or a tax guy, and it doesn't mean that you're an attorney or an insurance guy. But as a certified financial planner, you had to pass a rigorous exam that covers all 4 of those areas in great detail, correct?
That's exactly right. Yeah.
And here's the thing. They all touch. They all intermingle, right?
Yeah.
So when I think about estate planning, I like to start the conversation with the certified financial planner. Because generally, Chris, as the certified financial planner, when you're putting together that individual's financial plan, you've talked to them about what happens if,
correct?
Right? And is this in order, right? Now, you're not drawing up the legal documents, but you certainly can put them in the right direction. And here at Modern Wealth, we're actually doing the plans, the estate plans in-house. So
that's a great point.
So talk a little bit about why you think it's important that you start with the plan. And that way you can get rid of this whole challenge of the attorney.
Yeah. So I think the reason why, Dean, is no different than what we talk about all the other aspects of what we do, the pillars of what complete a financial plan, is that there's implications on what you want to do depending on how you want this transition when you're no longer around, right? And the one that comes top of mind is always taxes, right? Is that depending on how your tax buckets are set up and what your wishes are doing, what you want with your estate plan done when you're no longer around is really going to dictate everything that you're doing within the plan anyway. So it makes sense, to your point, to start with a certified financial planner and saying, okay, what's the big picture here? What do we want the end goal to be? And the end goal is even including when you're not around.
Right.
So how do we reverse engineer back, and what do we need to do today? And then having that conversation with the certified financial planner, and preferably if it's in-house, working with the estate planner to say, okay, here's what we want done. And there's always going to be some finer details to it of what makes, somebody's estate plan even personal and what they want to do. For generally, they can be pretty straightforward, but there's always going to be nuances depending on the situation, whether it's family, whether it's assets, what have you. But you bring up a great point, is you really want to start with that financial plan, because that financial planner is going to have the broad view.
Right. So I think that again, that can help us with the challenge of the attorney side of things. Mm-hmm. Challenge number 2 is probate.
Sure.
All right. So remember I said earlier, all wills are like dogs. All dogs go to heaven. All wills go to probate. Right. So it's a great point. Okay. So here's the thing. I got to tell you, this has been a couple of decades ago now, when there was an attorney that I knew that was doing some, I would call them half price estate plans. Okay. His fee was far less than most of the other attorneys that I was referring to at that time. And so I start referring this guy more and more business. Well, what I come to find out was he wasn't doing the full trust, right? He was doing what is called a wills-based trust, right? So he was doing the durable financial attorney, the durable financial power of attorney, the healthcare directives, the healthcare powers of attorney, those types of things. But in order for the trust itself to be triggered, somebody had to pass away, right? So if it's a will-based trust, that simply means that the will says everything goes into the trust at my death. Okay, well, what does that mean? That means now that everything, in order to get it into the trust, has to first go through the probate court. Okay? So, can you see anything wrong with that picture?
Yes.
Attorneys make a lot of money in probate court. Okay? They are also, famous for putting in something called a pour-over will. Now, the pour-over will is something that's important to be there, but it's the use of the pour-over will that I think gets me, okay? So what's going to happen, you're going to get your trust documents, and the attorney's going to give you those trust documents and going to say, okay, these are all the things that you need to do. This is how you need to title all of your assets, and you need to make sure that everything is now titled in the name of your trust, yada, yada, yada. Okay, but guess what? In the event that you miss something, don't worry about it, because we have the pour-over will as part of the plan, and anything that doesn't get titled in the name of the trust when you pass away will actually automatically go into the trust by way of this pour-over will. Again, it's going to go through probate.
Sure.
So if you're a lay person and somebody's telling you, hey, if you don't get stuff titled, Chris, it's not a big deal because the pour-over will actually make sure that everything goes into the trust, what am I doing?
Correct.
I'm creating a nice payday for the attorney that set that thing up.
Yep. And again, is that what we talk about is that to your point, is that while it's cheaper than other estate plans, you've really just created a really expensive piece of paper.
Yeah. So understand what you have. That's kind of a key there. So, and look, probate, as we talked, time consuming, no privacy, easily contested. It's confusing. And you know what? It's expensive.
It is. Yeah. And I think too, is that the one circling there too is time consuming. Is a lot of people say, well, they sit there and they're like, well, I'm gone. I don't really care how long it takes, but you kind of do too. If you want your kids to have access to it, or you want charities to have access to it. We've talked about that on previous shows, is that you really don't want this tied up in the court system, because to your point is every time there's more time, that usually more means that's dollars. Yeah. Time is money in that capacity. So you just you want your money going to where you want your money going to.
Right.
You don't want to go into attorneys. You don't want to go into courts. You don't want to go into taxes.
So this next one, we're going to talk about estate taxes. Okay. Mm-hmm. So estate taxes, in 2025, is 13.99 million per person, the estate tax exemption, what's called your unified credit. All right. In 2026, it's going to increase to 15 million per person. So it's 30 million for a married couple that you can pass from one generation to the next without incurring estate taxes. Right now, the state that you live in may have state estate taxes, but you won't incur any federal estate taxes. So I recently read an article, Chris, that talked about how many people by numbers have a net worth in excess of $30 million.
Yeah.
We talked about it.
We did.
Do you remember the number?
I don't, Dean. Yeah.
It was 510,000 and some change, right?
Yeah.
So a very few people. So we're saying that right now there's only a little over 500,000 people that have a net worth that would cause them to do any kind of estate planning that is to help avoid the estate taxes on the amounts over that $30 million.
Yep.
So most people believe, well, if I'm not in that range, I don't need an estate plan. I don't need a trust, but that's not true.
Correct. Nope, that's exactly right. And so when we talk about the tax side of it too, is that you're exactly right when it comes to that. What we're looking at when somebody should create an estate plan is how you want them divvied out. Is say you've got, kids that are below the age of 18 and you want, you've got life insurance, maybe in excess of $1 million or $2 million, where you can't hand a 5-year-old $2 million, right? And so the estate plan is going to help with that. When you look at maybe some of your family members are not great with money, right? Maybe they spend it on wrong things. Maybe you have somebody, and this is real stuff, is that maybe you have somebody that has a gambling addiction or addiction to alcohol or addiction to drugs, and say, hey, I've sat down with clients and it's a very difficult conversation, but it's better to have the conversation there than after they've already passed, is that to say, hey, my grandson, my granddaughter, my child is not great with money. How can we help them help themselves when I'm no longer around?
Yeah, you're talking about putting some rigid stipulations in. It's it's almost like directing from the grave.
That's exactly right.
But in some cases, it's okay.
Yeah.
In some cases, it's okay. Okay, let's continue on our list here, Chris. Long-term care, another challenge of estate planning. What do I mean by that? I mean, look, we know just from statistics that for a married couple, one person is going to spend some significant time, a really good chance that one person spends some significant time in long-term care. All right, so, why would that be an issue? Well, it could be an issue because it could chew up any estate that you have if you haven't properly looked at that, right? And when we look at that aspect of long-term care, that's a risk management aspect, right? And if you want your assets to go to the long-term care facility instead of the ones you love and the organizations that you care about, don't do anything. Just try to self-insure, run yourself down to nothing, then go to the Medicaid-approved plan, and you're fine. That's not really what most people want, right? That Medicaid spend down is kind of the last-ditch effort, not a great strategy. So understanding that the risk is there and then addressing that risk and running the financial plan from the perspective of, okay, what happens? Let's run this plan and assume that one person goes in. Let's assume that both people go in. How do the assets stack up? What's the end result look like? Then you can have the conversation with your client, Chris. Okay, is this what you want? Okay, and then other option is, well, let's look at insuring this issue, right? Whether it's a life insurance with a critical care rider on it, whether it's a pure long-term care policy. There's ways to address all this, but it all ties right back to the estate plan itself.
It does, but I think it goes back even further. Is it right? You made the great point earlier in the show, is that you're exactly right. It starts with that certified financial planner. It starts with that financial plan, because now you're running these scenarios to say, hey, are you overinsured? Are you underinsured? Depending on what the risk is, and long-term care certainly being a factor in that, to say, okay, here's what happens. Here's what long-term care facilities cost. Here's the grades of them. I know that there's different, types of long-term care facilities. You've got some that are your bare bones. You've got some that are somewhat luxurious, I would say, is that in the amount of care they provide. And so with that, is that, what do you want that to look like? Let's inflate that at healthcare costs. When do we think? Now, nobody has that crystal ball to say when it's going to happen, how long it's going to be, how much it's going to cost, right? That would certainly help our job.
Right.
But when we look at that, is it starts with the plan to say, okay, now do we want to cover this risk, to your point, with some type of insurance, or are we going to self-insure? And that then factors into the estate plan. What's left over?
100%.
Yep.
So think about that. And don't ignore it when it comes to reviewing the estate plan, I think is the key.
Yeah.
All right. So joint ownership can cause some issues when it comes to estate planning as well. Now, I'm speaking more of joint ownership with a beneficiary. So let's say, for an example, that you decide, I don't want to take the time or spend the money to go get a will or a trust or a power of attorney or whatever. So you know what? I'm just going to put my son or my daughter or my sister or my brother, whatever it is, I'm going to put them on the account with me so that in the event that I can't do anything, they can still pay bills on my behalf, right? Does that work? Yes, it does.
Yeah.
And guess what? Just because it's and because it's a jointly owned account, if you pass away, then the person that's joined on that account with you is going to get the assets. There's no probate. There's no nothing. But what's the danger here? The danger is because it's a joint account, it's no longer just your money.
Correct.
That other person has just as much right to that money as you do. And guess what? So do that person's creditors, right? And so if that individual were to get sued, they would have a financial difficulty or whatever it was. Now, all of a sudden, that person's financial problems can impact your personal assets. So don't do that.
Right. Don't do that. And the other thing, too, is that if your goals are to transfer property to kids or a spouse or whoever, make sure that you're having that conversation with your financial planner and your estate planner, because to your point, Dean, too, is there's gift taxes. We talked about gift taxes earlier, is that goes against gift taxes when transferring property. There's taxes involved. There's tax implications with step up and basis that comes to that. Is it's really, really important to have these conversations with your financial planner before you make them, because they're looking at it as the global plan and they're seeing how it works with these different aspects. And you're only focused on, hey, I just want to make sure it goes to my son or my daughter or my grandson. And that's great, but there's a lot of moving pieces here you want to make sure you have covered.
What you're really talking about is what we call the modern wealth advantage, right? So you have the CFP that is knowledgeable in not only preparing the financial plan, but investments and taxes and estate planning and insurance, right? But then at Modern Wealth, we have the actual advantage offerings within each one of those things, right? So we can address the investment management with our team of chartered financial analysts that run the portfolios. We can address the taxes with our team of CPAs that are looking at that. We can do that with our subject matter experts in the estate planning and the risk management side of things as well. So not only are we talking about it and coordinating your plan, we're actually implementing those things into your financial plan all under one roof, which is really why we call it the advantage offerings of Modern Wealth.
No, and that's just it, is that it's all in-house too, Dean. Is that's the, the benefit is that when you have a healthcare provider or network, is that, hey, you go see a general practitioner and they say, hey, go talk to this office if you got a heart or a lung or a knee problem. And those two doctors aren't really talking to each other when it comes to a lot of things. Is that the general practitioner's giving you the workup, he's saying, okay, what's the issue? And kind of insourcing it, if you will, is that, hey, it's going to a different person, but it's all under the same umbrella.
100%.
Is that what we do here, to your point, is that we're having the direct conversations, is that Corey Holstein, our director of tax here in Kansas City, is sitting in the meetings with us. Him and I are building the tax plan. He's looking at the financial plan, and we're working together, and then we're presenting that in a unified manner. And we're both hearing either the same thing for the client or different things, and then we're meeting up afterwards and saying, okay, what do we want the immediate plan to be, and what do we want the long-term plan to be? And that extrapolates across that investing and estate planning and insurance planning as well.
100%. All right, let's go to beneficiaries, Chris. Here's the deal. When was the last time you updated or looked at and reviewed the beneficiary designations on all of the accounts that you have?
Yeah.
Right? That you need to be doing that once a year.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you a crazy story, okay? And then we'll get into what types of accounts should have beneficiaries, what types you can take care of it through titling, etc. So I needed to get a replacement Social Security card, right? So you go online, you set up your account, you go in there, and they do this, verify your identity, okay? So you got to take a picture of your driver's license, the front and the back. You got to enter in all this information. Mm-hmm. And so it verifies my identity. Yep, that's the guy. Then I go to the Social Security website and it says I'm sorry, your identity does not match the identity that we have for this Social Security number. And I'm like, well, but that's my Social Security number, right?
Exactly.
Right? I'm turning 60 years old here in a few weeks, and I've been filing a tax return under my legal name, Frank Dean Barber,
Yep.
for decades. Okay? Somehow, somewhere, at some point in time, the Social Security Administration removed my first name from my Social Security number, so it's just Dean Barber as opposed to Frank Dean Barber. So now I got to go get birth certificates and all this other stuff, go to the Social Security office just to get my identity back to the way it should be with the Social Security office. Okay, so my point in bringing that up is how is it possible that a beneficiary form could maybe be wrong? How that maybe a beneficiary form has been lost or wasn't properly updated.
Yes.
Things happen. This is why I say review your beneficiaries.
Oh, absolutely, Dean. And I'll tell you one even, just as strange and what a weird thing to prove who you are, to the Social Security Administration. But I saw one time where, a client came to us and they had an insurance policy, and we looked at the beneficiaries and we're like, okay, who's this person? Who's this person? Who's this person? And we got to the third beneficiary, and it was their person's advisor.
What?
Exactly. But it turns out is that it was a misprocessing on the insurance company.
What?
Is that the advisor turned it in, we looked at the form, they filled it out correctly, and the insurance company took the advisor and put them on the policy. Wow. And they had no idea. Wow. And so that's what I'm saying is you can do everything right to fill out the beneficiary forms correctly.
Yes.
And the advisor, and it can still be wrong. So it is something, and we talk about it on the shows here too, is that the yearly calendars, you do want to double check that because strange things happen.
So here's another one. Then this is a wild one as well. This has been probably 15 years ago, maybe a little bit more. One of my wife's friends' husband was diagnosed with brain cancer, and it was terminal. Right, and the guy's in his 40s, and we know that he's not going to make it. And so I simply approached them and I just said, look, I said, if you guys need any help, if you want me to look over anything, if you want whatever, I'm here to help you. No, we've everything's done. We've talked to an attorney and we got everything taken care of. I'm like, okay, the offer stands.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
He passes away. He has a $1 million life insurance policy. Do you think that they bothered to check who's the beneficiary of the $1 million life insurance policy?
Oh, no.
It was not the wife and 2 children. It was his father. So now his father gets the $1 million.
Yeah.
Right? And here's the wife and 2 children.
Yep.
Nothing.
Yeah. Yep.
How hard would it have been to actually check the beneficiary designation on that life insurance policy?
That's exactly right. Not hard at all. And certainly not hard to change it.
Right. So think about real estate, right?
Yeah.
So real estate, if you don't have a trust, you can title it as, let's just say Chris Rhett with a transfer on death to whoever you want it to be, right? You put that TOD or POD, depending upon the state that you live in.
Yep.
That can accomplish that, right?
Yep.
Bank account, you can do the same thing if you don't have a trust. Ideally, if you've got a trust, you want to title that asset in the name of the trust and actually make sure that it's done properly. 401ks and IRAs and 403bs and 457s and any type of a qualified plan or a tax-deferred annuity or whatever, they all operate differently. They all have their own designated beneficiary forms, and those designated beneficiary forms will trump a trust every time.
Correct.
Right? So it doesn't matter what your trust says.
Yep.
It matters what your beneficiary designation says because that is the law of the land.
Yep. And that's what we get into, the funding of the trust and all the aspects there. You're exactly right.
I've talked about this one on America's Wealth Management Show before, Chris, but I think it bears repeating because it's an important one to understand. And this goes all the way to the state Supreme Court of California, and it was challenged by the ultimate beneficiary. So mom and dad married, 2 daughters. Mom passes away. The husband goes in on his 401k and puts his 2 daughters as primary beneficiaries of his 401k, right? Did the right thing. maybe a decade later, he gets remarried and passes away 6 months after he was married.
Okay.
The kids go to get the money out of the 401k, and the 401k provider's like, hold on, this is not your money. And they're like, our names are on the beneficiary form. And they're like, well, under the ERISA code, the surviving spouse has to sign a waiver waiving their rights to that money. That spousal waiver was never signed. So this new spouse of 6 months now all of a sudden is the beneficiary of this guy's 401k plan.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
Okay, so it's just, again, it's things that you may not really know.
Yeah. No, I think
IRAs and 401ks are different.
They are. And I think this brings up an important point too, is, you always want to be taking, goes back to, again, as our yearly things as we're approaching the end of the years, you want to have inventory of all of your assets. As I can't tell you how many times I sit down and we do this for a living, Dan, and we're sitting down, we're building the plan. Is this everything you have? Yep. This is everything I have. And they come in for an annual review or a semi-annual review, and they bring in this life insurance thing.
Oh, I forgot about this.
Yeah, what is this? Is usually they throw it on the desk and they're like, what is this? And I'm like, well, you should have told us. And to your point is that they've got a beneficiary from 25 or 30 years ago, and you hope the person's still alive, but certainly you want to get it updated. So I would think, add that too, is that add the inventory and then how to change the beneficiaries and how all those work.
That's right. Let's do number 7, becoming incapacitated. And I want to wrap up with a don't do that segment here. So look, we talked about this early on in the program, and I had mentioned at that time, Chris, that I think that that's probably one of the most critical parts for me, right?
Yeah.
Is hey, if I can't make decisions, who's making those decisions on my behalf?
Sure.
Now, do I want to put that burden on my children? Do I want to appoint a corporate trustee to do that? And, I've gone the route of I've seen what that burden can look like on a family member.
Sure.
It's a lot of work.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you have the fiduciary responsibility, which means that your responsibility to put the interests of the individual that created the estate plan ahead of your own 100% of the time, right? And if you're working and you've got to put all this on top of it, it can be overwhelming.
It can, especially if this isn't something that you normally do, right? As if you're not familiar with finances and how they work. And if you're left picking up maybe the pieces of the family matters, maybe some family members are on the outside, maybe they're on the inside. It could be some family members are cliquey. That's a lot of responsibility for one family member.
And so what you do here, this is beyond the durable power of attorney for finances. This is your successor trustee in the event that you and your significant other can no longer make decisions. And that's where that successor trustee comes in as a corporate trustee, right, to do that. And of course, then we talked about the healthcare powers of attorney and the healthcare directives. Those are things that I believe should go to family members, right? So we got a quick thing that was out on the web here. It's called the 3 biggest estate planning mistakes. We're going to listen to what this gentleman has to say when it comes to the 3 biggest estate planning mistakes.
Here are the 3 biggest estate planning mistakes. Mistake number 1, failure to fund your trust. By far the biggest mistake. If you don't fund your trust, you don't have a trust. So what do I mean by this? You must actually change the title of your assets to the name of the trust. Example would be, let's say, a bank account or a house in the name of Nick Jacobs. That would need to be changed to the name of the trust, i.e. the revocable trust of Nick Jacobs. Mistake number 2, choosing the wrong fiduciary. For example, the power of attorney, the trustee. Put some thought in this decision. It needs to be somebody that you trust, that's responsible. For example, some people just pick their firstborn son or daughter as their trustee without actually considering if they'd be right for the job. These people are going to be responsible for your assets and many important decisions. Third is not planning for your digital assets. Think crypto keys, social media accounts, or anything else that you find important online. Generally, without proper estate planning, your heirs won't have access to these accounts.
Okay, Chris. So I'm going to go with the number 1 thing there, not funding the trust. 100% agree with this guy, right?
Yeah.
That is the number 1 thing. But remember what I talked about earlier where the attorneys will say, if you don't get everything titled in there, don't worry about it because you have this pour over will that's going to make everything go into the trust. Well, guess what? All you did was ensure that everything's going to go through probate. It's going to be costly. It's going to be public. And all of the reasons why you created the trust in the first place are null and void if you don't fund the thing.
No, and you're exactly right, Dean, is that so many times that, we have people come to us and they, I have a trust. And to your point is that they don't have a trust. And I like the way he phrased that. You don't have a trust is because we look at their accounts.
You got a pretty book.
That's exactly right. You got an expensive pieces of paper because we look at their accounts and they're not the beneficiary. To your point, that's exactly right. But I think it bears repeating to say, hey, if you've done the work of creating an estate plan, make sure your estate planner is adding it to your accounts and actually funding the trust.
So you remember, Chris, you said where somebody forgets to tell you about something, right? And then I forgot to tell you about this. Well, within the last 5 years, we had a couple pass away. They had been clients for maybe 2 or 3 years at the time. When they came to us, they already had a trust done. We reviewed the trust, and it appeared that the trust was doing everything that they wanted to do. So they opened up accounts. We funded the accounts. We titled everything in the name of the trust. We made sure beneficiary designations were correct. We thought we knew about everything, but they failed to tell the certified financial planner about a separate account that had $2 million in it that we had no idea existed. And guess what? That $2 million account was not titled in the name of the trust.
Oh, goodness.
And so now all of a sudden, what we thought and what the kids thought was a nice buttoned up estate plan.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden there's this asset that we don't know about that's not titled in the name of trust. And so this whole $2 million goes through probate. It winds up being this huge, huge mess.
Yeah.
And it didn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be. Yep.
Right. So look, take the time. Like I said earlier, everybody's got an estate plan. It's either the one that you've put together and reviewed and make sure that it's what you want, or it's the one that the state is going and the courts are going to decide for you. So take the time and review your plan. Chris, your favorite quote is Ben Franklin quote. And what is that quote?
Yeah. Those that fail to plan. No. So those that fail to, hold on. Yeah. Okay. So those that fail to prepare are preparing to fail.
Yeah. And so take it to heart, right? Take the time to do these things. Like I said earlier, none of us are immortal. We're going to pass away.
That's exactly right.
There's a chance that we could become incapacitated before we pass away. The estate plan is an integral part of your overall financial plan. It's not one that's fun to talk about, but it's one that needs to be addressed. Chris, I appreciate you taking time to spend with me here on America's Wealth Management Show to talk about the things that people need to be aware of when it comes to estate planning.
Dean, thanks for having me.
You bet. Yep. Everybody, until next time, stay healthy and stay safe.
The views expressed represent the opinion of Modern Wealth Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Information provided is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute investment, tax, or legal advice. Modern Wealth Management does not accept any liability for the use of the information discussed. Consult with a qualified financial, legal, or tax professional prior to taking any action.